How to get players to discover and buy your game in an oversaturated market. So 3 tips and 3 action steps. So in this training, you'll learn how your marketing efforts isn't the problem. The problem is that in an overcrowded market, you need something different to grab attention. You'll learn examples of how other games did something different and got attention for it. And you'll learn how to get a player to come to you instead of, you trying to go after their attention. You'll learn how to talk about your game in a way that differentiates it from the hundreds of other, games similar to yours. You also get a 3-step action plan showing you exactly what to do to get a player to come to you instead of you going to them, right? Remember, you don't want to be ignored just because your game looks and sounds like other games, but even though it isn't, right? And also you'll learn how to build a marketing system that once you build it, it works for you automatically in terms of getting, wish lists and game sales. And you'll get a simple technique you can use right now to help you get players to find you. Also, you'll learn how to do this all without, spending money on PR and branding. And you'll learn how to get a player to download and try your demo. Also, you'll get business marketing strategies made specifically for small indie game studios with a small marketing budget. So you're going to learn a lot in this training. And if you want to avoid, having your game die on the vine, then here's what you need to know and here's what to do. So if you don't know, my name is Darius. And since 2005, I've created 3 successful startups. And all my startups were in overcrowded, very competitive markets. And all of my startups have been in creative industries like graphic design and game art. And how I survived making, creative things in oversaturated markets was counterintuitive, but it worked because it cut through the noise. So what I'm about to show you are the same strategies and techniques I used, and it's the same, techniques I use when I'm marketing my clients' video games, right? And you won't see these strategies and techniques anywhere because most game marketing is focused on how to get attention, using a certain platform. So what I mean is, game devs are told how to best market their game on Steam or on Reddit or on Twitter or on TikTok, for example. And I'm not saying that this advice you're getting is wrong or bad, but what happens when you focus on marketing your game using a platform, the means of your success can also be the means for your failure. So for example, you probably heard 10,000 wish lists is the number, the key metric on Steam. So now Steam changed it. So now Steam changed it to the velocity of wish lists. And then maybe in 2 years, that metric is going to change, right? So what I'm trying to say is don't rely on platforms to help market your games. Platforms will always change their algorithms and their metrics. And it's a hard game to play because what worked yesterday may not work today, right? So no, that's not what you're going to learn today. What you'll learn in this training are the basic fundamental business strategies that you can use, even though, the landscape might change. So in other words, what works today will work tomorrow. So if you're a game dev that doesn't have, millions to spend on PR or branding, and you want to get your game discovered without, spending any money and too much time, then here's what you need to know. Okay, first I'm going to go through some tips, then I'm going to give you some action plans and then a technique. Okay, so here's tip number 1. And that is the problem isn't your marketing. So tweets, TikTok, press kits, trailers, cold emails to YouTubers, paid Google ads, paid sponsorships to YouTubers, Twitch streamers, Reddit posts. These were all great ways, for small game studios to grab attention without spending too much money on marketing. But now that market is, crowded, and gamers and people in general just, tune this extra noise out. They hear, oh, that's an ad, slash ignore, right? And just look at Reddit. Small devs used to use Reddit successfully to self-promote, and it worked. And because it did work, more and more game devs used it, right, to self-promote their game. But today, Redditors turn, almost hostile to any small devs, trying to self-promote. And that's because nobody wants to, keep seeing ads. People aren't on Reddit or, even other platforms just to see, game devs self-promote. I mean, yes, gamers love, buying games. They love shopping, but they hate being sold to, right? So the problem isn't your marketing. It's that your marketing is adding to the noise. So then how do you cut through this noise, right? So let's keep going and all of this will make sense. So here's tip number 2, and that is to be successful in an overcrowded market, you need to dominate a niche. So if you want your game to be discovered in an oversaturated market, you can't copy a market leader. So instead, you need to carve out a niche and dominate that area. So let me explain exactly what I mean. So YouTube dominates, the video sharing market, but Twitch carved out a niche and focused on, live streaming for gamers, at least when it first started, right? And I'm talking about after Justin TV, right? They just focused on gamers. Also, Curiosity Stream, carved out a niche and focused on documentary and educational videos, right? It's the same thing with video games. So let's look at the FPS, the first person shooter market. In 2000, Counter-Strike carved out a niche in the FPS market and dominated the tactical FPS genre, right? And then in 2003, Call of Duty came out and they dominated the World War II niche. And then in 2008, Left 4 Dead carved out the zombie FPS niche, and so on, right? So what I want you to see is a pattern that there's usually a leader in a market, then other games come in, but instead of competing directly with that market leader, they'll break off a chunk and dominate that market and become their own market leader in that niche or in that category. All of these games eventually evolved and broadened their genre to grab a bigger market. So for example, Twitch no longer just does video, game streaming. It also does categories like, just chatting. And same thing in gaming, Call of Duty broadened their scope, and now you can be shooting zombies, right? The latest game. So this is an important lesson though, because when we first start off, we can't be everything to everyone. We need to carve out a niche in our genre and dominate that first. And once you dominate a niche, then you can start broadening your market, and that's how you get more people when you broaden your market. But when you're first starting out, when you're small indie game dev, you need to dominate a niche and carve out a category. And this is a very important lesson for new and small game studios, and that is focus on creating a new category or a new niche in your genre. And that's because if you're the first to open a new category, you usually become the market leader. Okay, that's easy to talk about, easy to explain, but then how do you do this exactly? Well, it's very difficult to execute the strategy 2 months before launch. So carving out a new niche or dominating a new market starts even before you write your first code or draw your first pixel. It starts in the market research phase. But what if you've already started developing your game, and what if you're about to launch in a few months, and what if you're way past your product planning and market research phase? How can you still get attention in an oversaturated marketplace? Well, there's still a way for you to carve out a niche and help it differentiate from the hundreds of games that are similar to yours. And I'll show you how to do that later on. But first, let's keep going with the next step. Okay, step number 3 is instead of going to the gamer, have them come to you. So remember how I said that most marketing just adds to the noise, and this noise is ignored by most people now? So a better strategy is, instead of using what is called interrupt marketing, where you basically bombard players or gamers with self-promotion posts on Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, or even buying Facebook and Google ads, you take another approach. So let me explain a different strategy. When a gamer clicks on the add to cart button or buy now button on your Steam store page, it's because they probably already know about you, they already like you, and they already trust you that your game will be fun and enjoyable. And it's rare for a player to accidentally find your game on Steam, see the capsule art, watch your trailer, and see your screenshots and be so motivated, they'll buy your game right there on impulse. The actual path is a lot more complicated. So what I mean is the player probably already has heard about you, or already knows about your game somehow, and already established a relationship with you somehow, right? So a better strategy is relationship building. So instead of going to them with ads, and self-promotion posts, you create a system where they come to you, and you build a system where you begin, building that relationship. All right, I know I'm throwing a lot at you right now, but don't worry. I'll show you exactly how to do all of this, relationship building in the steps, in the techniques further on. So let's do that exactly, and let's keep going. Okay, step 1 is to simplify your marketing message so that the gamer knows what they get and what they'll experience. So remember how I said that the biggest reason why games, die on the vine is because most game devs don't know how to talk about their game in a way that connects with a player. Well, this is how you connect with a player so that they can differentiate your game from all the hundreds of other games, vying for their attention. Okay, let me be specific and let me ask you this. How do you describe your game? What subgenre is your game in? And what's your, elevator pitch, right? So for example, if a game dev says that their game is a puzzle action platformer, well, guess what? There's a lot of those games on Steam right now. There's thousands, right? There's nothing special. It's hard for a gamer to differentiate your game from all the other thousands of puzzle action platformers, that's on Steam. So by being specific is the best way to simplify your message and to cut through the noise. So let me explain a little further on, and this will make sense. So remember how I told you how carving out a niche is how you get players to discover you in an oversaturated market? Well, this is how you do it. You have to simplify your message so that a player can tell the difference between your game and the thousands of games similar to yours. It's like Counter-Strike versus Call of Duty. To a non-gamer, these two games look and sound like the same thing. You're a soldier, you're in an army, you shoot your way out of trouble, pew pew, right? But to a gamer, these two games are as different as night and day, right? Somebody who knows these games, right? It's the same with your game. You need to simplify your message so that a player can tell the difference from other games that look and sound like yours. You need to do this because the player's not going to do this effort. What's obvious to you isn't so obvious to the player. So let me show you an example of exactly what I mean. This is a pretty old example, but look at Tower of Guns. Let's check out their Steam page and see what I mean. And in the capsule art, they have a little line saying first person bullet hell roguelike mayhem, right? This is smart because in less than 1 second, a person knows what the game is and what is not. Then below the capsule description, it tells more about the game and basically says Tower of Guns is a fast-paced first-person shooter for the Twitch gamer and so on, right? It's simple, it's specific, and it seems kind of easy to do. But if you sit down, it's kind of hard to come up with something very simple and specific like this. But this is very important because when a player has never heard of you or ever seen your game before, they are going to compare it to other games similar to yours. And if you don't specifically tell them and show them how your game is different from the competition, then you've lost their attention, right? This is why, for example, CuriosityStream spends a lot of marketing money, telling you that their streaming service is for documentaries and education fans, right? And it's why AAA game studios, spend millions on branding. They want to make sure that you know how they are different from the competition. And at first glance, if you have no idea what CuriosityStream is, you'd think it's just another, YouTube copycat. But since CuriosityStream knows who their target is, they can craft a marketing message that cuts through the noise. And it's the same thing when describing your own game. Start backwards, who is your target player, and then craft a marketing message around that target player, and you'll get more attention. Okay, that's not all. And let's keep going on to step number 2, and that is create marketing content so it's easy for a gamer to find you. So there's 2 types of online content, and that is news-based versus evergreen content. So news-based content is stuff you'll see on TikTok or Twitter. It's content that is, passive, but the content has to be brand new. If it's old, people don't care. In fact, people who consume passive news-based content don't care necessarily about the content itself. They only care about, getting that quick hit of dopamine and serotonin. It's content made basically to get people addicted and emotional, right? So for example, a big thing happens in the news, and then there's a flurry of posts and hot takes and discussions, right? But then another big thing happens in the news, and then that crowd that cared so much about that old news is no longer interested. It's like I said, it's old news, and their dopamine is motivating them to search out for the next big news. The old news no longer gives them that high, basically, right? And I'm not saying that this is good or bad, right? And I'm not making any judgments. What I'm saying is that news-based content is not a good way to build an audience for your game. It's not a long-term strategy for marketing a game. News-based content works for news and content creators, but for marketing your game and building an audience, this strategy isn't the best. Yeah, it's true that some game devs have successfully built an audience on Twitter and TikTok, but for the most part, this strategy doesn't work. And if you've tried it, you know that it's a lot of hard work, right? So then you might be wondering, why do game devs keep using TikTok or Twitter, right? Well, a lot of game devs keep making news-based content to market their game because of 3 reasons. The first reason is news-based content is more popular than evergreen content. So it's natural to want to be part of it. The second reason is it's low effort, right? It's easy to post something quick about your game on Twitter and TikTok, and it's a lot more, work to write a 1,000-word article or to make a 10-minute video. And the third reason is that game devs are also addicted to it, right? So it only takes one good post to get you addicted. And that's why you'll see a lot of, game devs keep posting and posting, even though they get 0 engagement. They probably had one good post with a lot of engagement, and now they're just trying to chase that high. So a better strategy to build an audience, to get attention and build a relationship with fans is by publishing evergreen content. So what is evergreen content? Well, it's stuff that is as fresh no matter how old the news is. And it's content that a player searches for. And it's basically not passive content. So for example, any content you put on blogs, articles, even Reddit posts, because some people will Google something Reddit, YouTube videos, and even game demos are evergreen content. So by nature, it's searchable, it's indexed, and it's there for the long term. And creating, evergreen content is how to get gamers to come to you. So for example, say you're developing a motocross platformer game, right? Guess what? I bet there's at least 10,000 people who are into motocross and love platformer games, right? But how do you get the attention of those 10,000 motocross, slash platformer fans, right? Well, you can post news-based content on Twitter or TikTok, but then you're also competing with literally millions of other different topics. And chances are that your target player will find you is slim. So a better way to get attention is to start creating evergreen content specifically on that one topic. And chances of your target player finding you in this way is higher because that's the nature of evergreen content. It's content people seek and search out for. And I know a lot of people reading this will tell me, well, this worked 15 years ago, right? What are you talking about blogs and stuff like that? But these people don't understand the underlying mechanism why it works. It's not the technology or the platform. It doesn't matter if it's a blog or a website or an article on Medium or a video on YouTube or wherever, right? It's the psychological approach. It's active users versus passive users. What I mean is people who are actively searching for content are far different from people who are, passively scrolling, TikTok or Twitter. And you want to grab the attention of those active people because those people are the ones that are, more motivated to follow you because of your content. So on the flip side, the passive users only want that dopamine serotonin hit and don't necessarily care about the content itself. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard to build a community with apathetic people. You want to find people who are motivated and eager, and those are the people who are actively looking for you, and you can find them by creating high quality evergreen content. And further on in this training, I'll show you exactly how to do that. But first, let's move on to step number 3, and that is reward a gamer for discovering you. So when a gamer does discover you and when they find your content, you need a reason to get them, to come back. You need to reward them somehow. And the best reward is talking about what they're into. If you focus your content on what they want, you'll grab their attention and they'll stick around longer. So what I mean is, players are not into game dev. So if your evergreen content is all about, game development, then you're not really talking to your target audience. You're not talking about what they want. So a better way to connect with your players is to talk about your genre. So what would you talk about? Well, what do you hate and what do you love about your genre? What ways are you, trying to improve your genre with your game? And in a moment, I'll show you a technique on how to write interesting, evergreen content that players will gravitate to and connect with. But for now, just know that as a game dev, you have an inside look at your genre that no player has access to, right? And as a game dev, you have more authority about your genre than anybody else. So lean into that strength. And instead of talking about, technical stuff like game development, talk about what your players want to hear. So like new and interesting insights about their favorite genre from the perspective, of a game developer. So another reward you can offer your player is an exclusive demo. So for example, you write an article and make a video about how your game is trying to solve, X in your genre, right? And at the end of your article or YouTube video, you tell the person that they can play your demo that shows exactly how your game is trying to solve X in your genre. What most game devs do, however, is they try to convince a player to play their game demo with not showing a reason why they should play their demo. These game devs, assume just because their demo is free, then that's enough to motivate a player to play the demo. And in an crowded market, just because it's free, that's no longer a good reason to try demos, right? But if you give a reason to try your demo, you'll have a better chance of a player downloading and playing your demo, right? And by talking about problems in your genre and how your game is trying to solve those problems, then you have given a good reason for a player to, try that demo. Okay, now let's get into more advanced techniques to help you in your game gain attention in an overcrowded market. And let's talk about what to do when a player discovers you. Okay, in this part, you're going to learn how to stair-step your way into wish lists and game sales. And here's how. So my goal in this training is 2 things. That is, 1, help you and your game get discovered in a crowded market. And number 2 is help you sell more copies of your game. So to accomplish these 2 goals, remember, you need to build a relationship with players first. And it's because it's really rare for a player to buy your game on impulse. And chances are they've heard about your game first before they actually make the buying decision. So most times there is a stair-step process a player will take before they buy a game. So let me break down how players, find games and how they buy games. Then I'll show you a system you can copy to help you do the same thing with your game, right? Okay, here's stair step 1, and that is discovery. So players discover new games through a combination of a few methods, of a few sources. So the first one is online gaming platforms. So many gamers discover new titles through online gaming platformers like Steam, Epic, Game Store, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Right? These platforms often feature new releases and promotions, and it makes it easy for players to explore and purchase games. Right? But the thing is, before they actually pull the trigger and buy the game, they've probably already heard about the game from a different method or a different source. So another source could be from social media and gaming communities, like Twitter, TikTok, and subreddits like slash r or r slash gaming. And these gaming forums are popular because it's a great place to learn about new games, and gamers share their experiences, recommendations, and news about upcoming releases. Okay, the third source on how players find new games is YouTube and Twitch. Many gamers follow content creators, streamers, and YouTubers who review and play new games. And these influencers often focus on a specific genre and attract those players who like that genre too. And these influencers provide insights and gameplay, video, and reviews, helping their followers discover new games. Another source is gaming news websites, like IGN, Kotaku, Polygon, GameSpot. And they regularly publish articles and reviews about new games. And gamers like this because gaming news helps them stay updated. It's a good place, a good source just for getting all that stuff in one shot, right? Another source is gaming conventions like E3, or not anymore, but PAX or Gamescom. And these events allow players to get a firsthand look at upcoming games. And often these events feature demos and announcements that players can play right there, right? And lastly, another source is word of mouth. So recommendations from friends from online or in real life can be a powerful way to discover new games. So when someone enjoys a game, they often want to share their excitement with their friends or their gaming circle, right? So this might be a little obvious to you, but the method of discovery can vary from person to person, and many gamers use a combination of these sources to stay informed about the latest releases and find games that match their interest, right? So once they discover the game, they move on to stair step number 2, in that they play a demo or at least watch somebody else play the game. Once they discovered a game, it doesn't mean that they're going to go out and buy it or even wishlist it, right? What they'll often do is they'll either play your demo or play the demo, or go on YouTube or on Twitch and watch somebody else play the game, right? The reason is they want to see the game for themselves before they buy it. They've discovered it and they're interested, but before they invest any time or money into it, before they make a commitment, their next step is something low committal. So watching a YouTuber play the game or playing the demo for themselves is a lot less risky than buying it and spending time on it, right? Okay, once they've seen somebody else play it or they played it themselves, they'll move on to stair step number 3, and that is wishlist the game. So most people believe that players wishlist games because they just want to wait for the sale. And yeah, this is true, but there are other reasons why game or players will wishlist a game. So because there's a lot of games to weed through in this crowded market, it's really hard to organize which games you want to play or eventually want to play or buy, right? So a good way to organize what you're interested in is to put it on a wish list so that you can forget about it now and then buy it whenever you're ready. Also, players use wishlist as a reminder for a game that they want to get on the day it's released. Okay, once they wishlist the game, they move on to stair step number 4, and that is they buy the game. So again, people rarely buy on impulse. They often take small incremental steps of commitment before they buy a game. They'll discover your game, from different sources. Then the relationship begins, right? And then they'll want to try your game for themselves without, paying too much time or investment into it. So they'll watch a YouTuber they trust play the game, or they'll download the demo and try it for themselves. Then the player will wishlist the game as a way to organize the games they're interested in and weed out all the rest. Then when the game is released, or when it's on sale, or when the player's basically ready, that's when they click the add to cart button and actually buy the game. And then here's stair step number 5, which is the least obvious one but the most important one, and that is post-game research. And like I said, this is the most important step, and this is how it relates to you. So after a player buys and plays a game, they will often want to validate their feelings about what they just bought, right? Or just played. And it doesn't matter if they hated or loved the game, they want to find out if other people have the same feelings. So what they'll do is they'll go out, search YouTube or Google for videos or articles about that game. Again, they're searching out because they want to see if other people have the same feelings they had. This is an important step because this is how players also discover new games and how they can discover your game. If they love a game, they will want to find out if there are any other games similar to that game, right? So they will go on YouTube or Google and search for games like the ones that they just played. Or if they hated a game, they will go on YouTube or Google and watch and read what other people have said about the game and why they hated it. So remember how I said players discover games from different sources? So here's a quick refresher. So 1 is online gaming platforms, 2, social media and gaming communities, 3, YouTube and Twitch, 4, gaming news websites, 5, gaming conventions and events, and number 6, word of mouth, right? Well, in order to market your game using any of those sources requires a marketing budget. You need, basically a marketing manager to help you make connections and make deals. You need the right types of games that, appeals to Twitter or TikTok. You need to find a way to get that YouTuber to pay attention to you, or basically you have to pay them. And all of this marketing effort requires a lot of time and effort and money. And if you're a small game dev studio and have a small marketing budget, then this type of marketing isn't feasible to you, right? But here's how you can use your limitations to your advantage. So remember how I said that a player, after buying a game and playing it, will search out and see what other people said or wrote about the game? Again, people want to validate their feelings about a game they just played, so they will go to YouTube or Google and search out other people's opinions in hopes that they validate their, how they also feel. So this is your opportunity to find players who are looking for you. So if they love the game, chances are that they want to play a game similar to it, but a bit different, right? So this is your chance to get discovered. If you create content talking about how your game is similar to X, but a little bit different, then those players will find you. And on the flip side, if a player hated a game, then they'll search YouTube or Google and find other people talk about how they hated that game too. So this is your chance also to get, discovered. If you create content talking about how you also hate, X and Y game and how you're trying to change it with your game, then those people will easily find you. All right, let's move on to the next part. And I want to talk about how to create a marketing machine that works for you in the long term. So now I hope, do you see how you can, find people looking for you, and how you do this by, creating evergreen content that connects with people. And by creating evergreen content, you're building, basically a marketing machine that will work for you when you're not, right? It's like you're automating your marketing. So what I mean is that the content that you make in your blog or your YouTube video or even Reddit is there forever. And the longer evergreen content is out there, the better it'll work for you. Google will index your blogs, videos, and even Reddit posts. And this makes it easier for a gamer to find you, no matter how old the content is. So the whole idea here is that now that next time somebody plays, X game and loves it or hates it, they will search out for it in YouTube and Google, and then they will find your game. All right, let's keep going and wrap things up and tell you about the strategy, how it works as a system, and then how you can copy the system. So I call this formula the game discovery system. And so if you want to cut through the noise, if you want your game to get discovered in an oversaturated market, if you want it easier for players to find you, you need to use, like I said, what I call the game discovery system. It's a formula that I use when, marketing my own clients' games and that don't have a lot of money to spend on branding and PR. And it's a system designed that once you set it up, it basically automates the relationship building process, and it leads to wish lists and eventually, game sales. Okay, so here's exactly how it works. So number 1 is you gotta pump out evergreen content. So use a blog, a website, a YouTube, and just create high quality evergreen content. And you can also use Reddit as well, because people, like I said, like to Google something Reddit, right? Number 2 is, remember, after people play a game, they will want to validate their feelings. So they will search YouTube or Google and try to find new games similar to that game, or want to, hear about what other people said. And this is your chance to get discovered. Okay, number 3 is reward the player. When your player lands on your content, don't talk shop, right? Don't talk about game development or technical things. A better way to keep them reading, a better way to connect with them, is to talk about what they want to talk about. And that is, their favorite genre, what they hate about it, what they love about it, all the games that they, play in that genre, and then how your game kind of relates to that genre and the game similar to it. And then number 4 is use your demo as a marketing asset. So when players discover you through your blog or website or YouTube or even Reddit, give them a reason to come back. And the best way to do that is to let them, download and play your demo. It's your first step into getting them to buy your game. Okay, number 5 is use your demo to build wish lists. In your demo, make sure that you have a button that links back to your Steam store page. So on your splash screen, make sure that you have a wish list on Steam. Click here kind of link. And I know this kind of sounds obvious, but I've seen demos that don't have this, right? And you need to be very specific on what the player should do. Okay, number 6 is keep updating Steam. So once you got their wish list through your demo, it's important that they don't forget about you, right? And so that they are aware of you when you launch, right? So use the community hub on Steam to keep your player informed about any progress. You can also do this with Discord, but I like Steam better because Discord itself has become too saturated. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm in like hundreds of channels, but I only maybe visit 2 or 3. So I find Steam a little bit better organized for that purpose. All right, so if you want people to discover and buy your game in an oversaturated market, you need to be different. So in this training, you've learned a lot. And remember, my goal here is to show you how to get gamers to discover your game and get them to buy your game. So to do this, you first learn that your marketing is not the problem. The problem is what worked yesterday is not working today. So the platforms themselves are getting overcrowded, oversaturated too, and self-promotion posts that used to work, 5 years ago aren't working anymore. And users are getting more hostile to, self-promotion posts. And that's because users don't want to see ads on their platform. And this makes sense, right? They don't want to always see ads on their platform. That's not why they're using, Twitter or Twitch or any of, those platforms or Reddit, right? And it used to work because people love shopping and they love to buy, right? But they don't like being sold to. So now it just feels like they're just being sold to. So marketing isn't the problem. The problem is that most marketing just adds to the noise. So the second thing you learned is that the best way to cut through the noise is to focus on carving out your own genre or your own category. And to carve out your own genre, you need to learn how to communicate in a way that connects with players. And what seems obvious to you about your game, it may not be so obvious to a player. And if a game dev doesn't learn how to talk about their game in a way, that differentiates themselves from the other games, then their game will just, basically die on the vine, right? And that's because you need to see it through the perspective of a player. To a player, most games sound and look the same. It's the games that know how to communicate in a way that, helps them differentiate themselves from the other games that will get attention. Then you learn the difference between, news-based content versus evergreen content, and that, evergreen content is the best way to market your game and get discovered and build a, audience in the long term. And then you learn how players buy games by taking small incremental stair steps toward buying a game. First, a player discovers a game through the combination of, different sources. So like online gaming platforms, social media and gaming communities, YouTube, Twitch, gaming news websites and gaming conventions and events, and word of mouth, right? Then once the player discovers the game, they want to try out the game with as little commitment and effort as possible. So they'll play a demo or watch a YouTuber play the game. Then they'll wishlist the game so that they can organize the games they're interested in one single spot, right? Then they'll buy the game when it's released or when it goes on sale or whenever they're ready, right? But first, the player needs to build a relationship somehow to get to this point where they actually buy the game. And like I said, players rarely buy a game from a small studio, especially that they just heard about on pure impulse. They need to know more about the dev, they need to know more about the game, and they need to know more about what they'll experience before they play or buy the game. Then here's the most important thing is that after they play a game, they will search on YouTube and Google to validate their feelings about the game. If they love the game, they will search out games that are similar to that game on YouTube or Google. Or if they hated the game, they will search YouTube or Google and want to hear about other people complaining about the game they just played. Then this is where you learn the game discovery system, where basically, you leverage that moment when a person just finished a game and is now searching to find new games similar to that game, or they're out searching for people validating their negative feelings for a game. And this is important because this is where your evergreen content will work for you and get players to discover you. And don't get me wrong, you can still market your game using the sources that you just learned about, like Twitch or Twitter or Reddit or paid ads. But again, that takes money and time and, basically a marketing manager to build those connections and make deals, using those sources. But if you don't have that marketing budget, then you can, start leveraging evergreen content that connects with players that are looking for you, right? And to connect with players, the topics that you should create in your evergreen content should be about what the player wants. So what they loved about a game, what they hate about a game, or, the genre, and the games that are similar to the games that you're making, right? All right, so to help you on your first step to get people to discover you and buy your game, here's what to do. Here's a simple technique for players to find you in an oversaturated marketplace. So in this training, in this video, you've learned to be specific. You've learned to create evergreen content. You've learned to simplify your message, learned about the stair step sales system. And I know these are kind of weird and different ways to market your game, right? But think like a gamer does. Think how they would, try to find your game. If a gamer is window shopping on Steam in a game that looks, and sounds like all the other games, then it's not going to get attention, right? And if a game does grab somebody's attention, then they're not going to buy it right away, because that's not how consumers behave. Consumers need a relationship first with your game and with your studio and with yourself before they decide to, click the buy now button. So create evergreen content, keep your marketing message specific and simple, and give a gamer a reward for discovering you. And remember that the more you tell, the more you sell. So the more content you put out there, the better chances are that they'll discover you. So to help you get started, do this right now. And you learned a lot, but actual learning doesn't happen unless it changes your behavior. It's like, reading about how to ride a bike. You haven't really learned how to ride a bike until you get, your butt on the seat and try, right? So to get your butt on the seat, do this simple technique and you'll see how it will work in terms of helping you, cut through the noise and get discovered in an oversaturated or overcrowded market. Okay, you ready? Okay, open up a Google Doc, and on the top of the document, paste the following. First question is what I hate about my genre. Second question is what I love about my genre. Third is how my game is trying to improve my genre. And number 4 is what games inspired me to make my game. So now under each question, take 3 to 5 minutes answering it, then move on to the next questions 2 and 3 and 4, right? So here's my example. So question 1 was what I hate about 4X turn-based strategy games. And I came up with, AI is dumb, late game is a slog, in late game there's too many moving pieces, and I just, don't want to, spin all those plates. Mid game is basically boring. There's no characters. There's no events or stories that grab attention. Civ is the gold standard, and I don't want another Civ clone. The order system is outdated and old. Sprawling cities means too much micromanaging. Tech trees are outdated, is an outdated system. And then question number 2 for my example is what I love about 4X, turn-based strategy games. So I love the early game discovery, the idea that my empire grows through my own planning and strategy, the idea of controlling a city but not having to micromanage, deciding what to do. So I like the idea of tech trees because it adds a sense of progression, but this is an outdated way of making progress, right? Then question number 3 is how my game is trying to improve 4X turn-based strategy games. So I want to make a tight, small area, not a huge world. So think Batman Arkham Asylum versus Batman Arkham Knight. The first game is a tight, self-contained, focused, crafted world. The second is a big open world. Then next, instead of a tech tree, why not use cards players can choose from? And instead of no characters, why not have a dynasty you can play with, and where your character grows old and a successor takes over, right? And then 4 games that inspired me. So Civ, Old World, Age of Wonders, Crusader Kings. Okay, now here's how the technique can help you. Each of my brainstorms can be turned into an article or a video. So for example, in my example, I came up, with 20 bullets or 20, brainstorms. So for example, I can write a 500 or a 1,000 word article or a 5 to 10 minute video on how AI is done in 4X games. And then I can talk about how my game, is trying to improve AI in 4X games. And then I can write how Civ inspired me to make my own game, but then explain the problems with Civ and how I'm trying to prove that formula with my game, right? And basically you can do the same thing. So each bullet you wrote down, it can be a topic for, a blog or an article or for your YouTube channel. But make sure when you write an article or you make a YouTube video that there's a link where they can download your demo. Or if you don't have a demo, at least a link to your Discord, right? And this is important because your article or video will give them a reason to want to play your demo or a reason to want to, join your Discord. So do this right now, build that system and start developing, that marketing system. So open up a Google Doc and paste the following, 4 questions. So what I hate about my genre, what I love about my genre, and how my game is trying to improve my genre, and what games inspired me to make my game. And then brainstorm and answer those questions. And then use your answers as seeds for your new evergreen content for your game. So start there and you'll see that this is the best, marketing strategy for small indie game devs with a small studio and a small team to get discovered in a crowd and, help you sell more game copies. And if you're still having trouble and you have any challenges with any of this, then here's how to get free help. So in the description below, there's a link there. So click that and I'll show you how to get some free marketing help from me. All right, my name is Darius. Thanks for watching. Thanks for learning. I hope my training helped you, get some ideas on how to, help market your game in an overcrowded marketplace and, help you, sell more games. Talk to you later. Bye.